Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of Guru Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be actually discussing on Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi-Lila chapter 2, verse 12, and the chapter is entitled Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the class will be given by Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg, and we will dive right into the verse and the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, 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 Gopi Janavallabha Vivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivaradhari, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Lava Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Lava Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Sirade Jaya Radha Shama Sundarada Shama Sundar Sirade Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Stottara Satashishi Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Stottara Satashishi Maharaj His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Brahmacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivachari Gaura Bhakta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mantra Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari 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 Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. For Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shimali Bhakti Tira Swami Nami. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Stapana Sri Gaura Karmisha. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. Good morning to all the devotees. This morning, reading from Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi-Lila. Adi-Lila chapter 2 and text 12. Adi-Lila 2.12. Okay. So I'd read it to Sanskrit, and after that, anyone who wants to repeat the Sanskrit may do so. Tanhara Angera Shudakiran Mandala Upanishad Kahitande Brahma Sunimala Tanhara Angera Shudakiran Mandala Upanishad Kahitande Brahma Sunimala Tanhara Angera Sudakirana Mandala Upanishad Kahitande Brahma Sunimala. Hare Krishna.
Tanahara Angira Shuddha Kirana Mandala Upanishad Kahitanre Brahma Sunirmala.
Tanhara Angire Sudha Kirana Mandala Upanishad Kahe Tanre Brahma Sunirmala.
Tanhara Angera Shuddha Kirana Mandala Upanishad Kahe Tanre Brahma Sunirmala.
Anyone else?
Tanhara, oh sorry.
Go ahead, Mamina, and then after you, Xavier can go.
Thank you, Mataji. Tahara Angera Sudha Kirana Mandala Upanishad Kahe Tare Brahma Sunirmala. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Tanhara Angera Shura Kirana Mandala Upanishad Kahe Tane Brahma Sunirmala.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Tanhara, his. Angira, of the body. Shudha, pure. Kirana, of race. Mandala, realm. Upanishad, the Upanishads. Kahe, say. Tanve, unto that. Brahma, Brahman. Su Nirmala, transcendental. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. What the Upanishads call the transcendental impersonal Brahman is the realm of the glowing effulgence of the same Supreme Person. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. 3 mantras of the Mundaka Upanishad 2, 2, 9, 10, and 11 give information regarding the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They state, Hiranmanye pare koshe virajam brahma nishkalam, tat chubram jyotisam jyotish tatyat atma vido vidu. Natata tatra suryo pati na chandram tarakam nema vidyo vidyuto banti kuto yam agni. Tam eva bantam anubhati sarvam tasya vasa sarvam idam vibhati. Brahme vedam amritam purastad brahma paschat brahma dakshinatas chotarena adas chodvam chapashritam brahmai vedam vishvam idam paristam. Translation. In the spiritual realm, beyond the material covering is the unlimited Brahman effulgence, which is free from material contamination. That effulgent white light is understood by transcendentalists to be the light of all lights. In that realm, there's no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity for illumination. Indeed, whatever illumination appears in the material world is only a reflection of that supreme illumination. That Brahman is in front and in back, in the north, south, east, west, and also overhead and below. In other words, that supreme Brahman effulgence spreads throughout both the material and spiritual skies. Oma Gina Timirandasya Gyana Gina Shalakaya Chakshu Om Litam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Sri Vita Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Tavadutam Parajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Paravami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhescha Kripa Sindhibe Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya, Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvisheshta Sunyavari Paschathyadi Shitarani Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachise Namaha Adi-Lila Maya Vigrahaya Imavedi Vechavishniraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So, the translation of the text. What the Upanishads call the transcendental impersonal Brahman is the realm of the growing effulgence of the same Supreme Person. Hare Krishna. So, in our scriptures, the Upanishads, which is part of the Vedas, Veda means knowledge. The Upanishads this part is focusing on the impersonal Brahman and defining the impersonal Brahman as transcendental, and it is also the glowing effulgence of the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So we look at the impersonal Brahman, the effulgence, and of course in the purpose, the Prabhupada describes even more from specifically the Mundaka Upanishad. The Upanishads have so much information about what is truth, about the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the glowing effulgence is in fact the main source of natural light in the spiritual world, and the reflection of that glowing effulgence is the light in the material world. The sun, we're not talking about the glowworm type small bulbs that the material scientists have provided, no matter how much power they have to shine, they don't compare obviously to the sunshine They do not. But even the sunshine is just a reflection of the effulgence, the spiritual effulgence, transcendental effulgence. And that is from the Supreme Personality of Godhead's body. It's emanating from Krishna. So Krishna is the source of everything. And without Krishna, nothing can ever exist. In the purport here, Prabhupada says 3 mantras in specifically the Mundaka Upanishad. They give information about the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they state that in the spiritual realm, beyond the material covering, we go past the material covering, is the unlimited Brahman effulgence. So the material world, which is actually 1/4 of all that be, 3/4 is actually the spiritual as far as space is concerned. The spiritual realm, beyond the material covering, so there is covering beyond the material covering. The sky is a material sky, and then of course, after we penetrate that, then there's a transitional area. We'll just leave it like that. And then the spiritual, where the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very, very prevalent. All that is in the spiritual world is effulgent. All. And it's effulgent because of the same Brahman effulgence that's being talked about here. It's the light of all lights. Transcendentalists look at it that way. And it shines everywhere, throughout both the material by its reflection and the spiritual skies by its reality. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 24, in the section of the purport, Prabhupada is describing this effulgence and describing the Lord and its effulgence, the same, and his effulgence at the same time. So this section says the word Brahma or Brahman means spiritual. When a person begins to understand who they really are, they really they connect with the spiritual aspect, because the physical aspect, whether it's gross, physical, or subtle material, is temporary. The subtle is the mind, the intelligence, and the pride or ego. And the gross physical is this body, which we use in acting, doing activities every day. The word Brahma means Brahman. So Prabhupada is describing here, it means spiritual. When the person says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the soul, the spiritual. My nature is spiritual. The physical body is only being used for a period of time called a lifetime, and after that, it will cease to exist. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body, the rays from it, that's what constitutes the Brahmajyoti, called the Brahmajyoti. That is his spiritual effulgence. Prabhupada is explaining it in a very simple way. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahmajyoti. We can see because of the Brahmajyoti. But when this is covered by Maya or illusion or sense gratification, then it is called material. So everything that exists is situated in the Brahmajyoti, but when the illusion covers it, then a part is covered, it's called material. And that veil can be removed at once through Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada is making the point that if we change our consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, then we see things as they are, and we connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will also realize that we are in the place that we really shouldn't be too long, and that is the material world. That's not our home. And therefore, going back home means going to be in the real effulgence, not the reflection of the effulgence, what we have here. The reflection of effulgence is a light from the sun. And the sun is one planet in this universe. In other universes, there are others. Planets that also give light, but they are all reflections from the same Brahmajyoti. But in the spiritual world, which is separate from the material world, everything that shines there is from the effulgence of Krishna, and that effulgence is spiritual, and that is what in Sanskrit we know as Brahmajyoti. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 11. Prabhupada quotes from a Brahma Samhita. Yasha Prabhavato Jagadananda Koti. And he quotes that a lot, actually. In many of his lectures, you hear him say that. Yasha Prabhavato Jagadananda Koti. Koti Shashesha Vasudali Vibhuti Binam. Tat Brahmanish Kalamanantam Ashesha Bhutam. Govindamari Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental bodily effulgence, known as the Brahmajyoti, which is unlimited, unfathomed, and all-pervasive, is the cause of creation of unlimited numbers of planets, etc., with varieties of climates and specific conditions of life. So now we see a little more about this Brahman effulgence. Lord Brahma is describing the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence, the transcendental bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna. He describes it as unlimited, unfathomed. Nothing means nothing can be compared to that type of effulgence. There's none equal to or better. There's none anywhere. In fact, there's nothing else but the spiritual effulgence. And what we get in the material world, as we said earlier, is just a reflection of it. The energies of the Lord, of course, are multifarious, different kinds of energy. And sometimes the small scientists here tap a little bit of it for production of other types of energy or change of energy in order to go on with this material life that's pretty artificial at this point, the life that we're living. Anyway, the Brahmajyoti is unlimited, is unfathomed, and all-pervasive. All-pervasive, this covers everywhere, either directly in the material, the spiritual world, or the reflection of it in the material world. Then Lord Brahma reveals more that it is the cause of the creation of unlimited numbers of planets. Now he would know because he is also the one that from the universe, he gives the varieties of planets. And he says that the cause of it, the energy of the Lord, is actually from this transcendental bodily effulgence. With varieties of climates, each planet has its own type climate and specific conditions of life suited to that particular climate. Now, in the spiritual world, the climate is wonderful in each planet in the spiritual world. But the material world, depending on the levels, there are three sets: the heavenly planets, the medium planets, which is where we are, one of the specific planets in the Bhu Mandala, and the hellish planets. So conditions of life change from the heavenly planets to the medium and also the hellish planets. The farther down you go, the hellish planets, the more suffering there is. So Lord Brahma reveals to us that it is, in fact, from the transcendental bodily effulgence of the Lord that the numbers of planets come to be. Obviously, everything is, it's a little bit science, and shouldn't say obviously, but science knows that everything has some form of energy, And now Lord Brahma is telling us that it comes from the transcendental bodily effulgence of Krishna. So Krishna is the supreme creator, and everything comes from him. So, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 27, talks more about, Srila Prabhupada's purport, talks more about this effulgence and those that want to merge into the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada says the constitution of Brahman, the spirit, is immortality, there's no death, imperishability, there's no destruction, eternity, there's no beginning and end, it goes on forever, and also there's happiness. That's from a spiritual standpoint. Srila Prabhupada says Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. There are three sets of realizations that progressively go up, get better, lack of a better word. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Then the super soul, Paramatma, is the middle and second stage of transcendental realization. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada says that both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. The impersonal Brahman, the effulgence of the Lord, Paramatma is an expansion of the Lord, and he's in our hearts, in the heart of every living entity. The soul is in the heart area, and also the Paramatma is there in the heart area of every living entity. Srila Prabhupada says it's explained in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord, and that the Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with fragments of superior nature. And this is how we come to be, because our nature is actually spiritual, we are souls, but we are in the material world because of the Lord's impregnation. It all starts from him. It all starts from him, ultimately. And that is a spiritual touch in the material nature. It comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when a living entity conditioned by this material nature, that is conditioned souls, when we begin the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, then by the Lord's mercy, we get elevated from the position of this material existence gradually up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme, that we are connected to him and that we are souls. Then we stop thinking of ourselves from a material standpoint. Now, a person that, and we'll talk about what the wonderful message the Prabhupada has given us. Normally, a person goes from the understanding that he's not these physical bodies, they go to the Brahman conception of life as this, we are spiritual. That is the first stage in realization. Now, at this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, because now they realize that we're not these physical bodies. But the person is not perfect in Brahman realization, because now they are focusing, just like the Mayavadis do, more on the transcendental, effulgent ways of the Lord. And some even stop there. You say, oh, I just want to merge into that because I have left the material. So they aspire to merge into the effulgent ways of the Lord, and they think they're going to stay there, but there's more to it. We'll talk about. This person is not perfect in Brahman realization, and we'll say why also. But anyway, to continue with Prabhupada's purport, if he wants, he can continue to stay in that Brahman position and gradually rise up to the Paramatma realization, which is what the yogis do. They know there's higher than just the effulgent ways of the Lord, therefore they go through realization by disconnecting with the material energy as much as they can and focusing on the Paramatma by getting away from things that are distracting, material and distracting. And they go through a lot of focusing on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but his Paramatma form in the heart, trying to realize the Lord in the heart. Devotees, then, we are at a position of being taught to be connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in full, not just the Brahman realization or the Brahma Jyoti, the effulgent rays, and to stay at that point only, or the Paramatma, which is a partial, or an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara, the disciplic succession, they are getting us to the point where we can relate to the Lord personally. So Srila Prabhupada says there are many examples of this in Vedic literature. People who rose close, entities who were in the Brahman position and then they slowly got up. Four Kumaras, one of them. First, they were situated in the four Kumaras are sons of Brahma, impersonal Brahman conception of truth at first. But then it gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. So what is being said here, not directly, but indirectly, is that the platform of devotional service and the understanding of Krishna as a supreme person, rather than effulgent race only, as a supreme person, is the highest understanding of Krishna consciousness. And to serve him means we have the understanding that we're servant of a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And through humility, we even aspire to serve the servants of the servants of the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, the other part of this impersonal Brahman is, yes, one can merge into it, but there is no activity with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the activities that are spiritual, that are wonderful, they give this bliss, great happiness. In the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, this effulgence of the Lord, yes, it is spiritual, so one then gets away from the material world, true enough, and therefore the suffering in the material world is also mitigated, it's gone. But just to be there, to be merged and not have any kind of activity, that can be, let's just put it this way, it doesn't compare to a situation where you can actually have a lot of activities and service and fun spiritually. That's not there in the Brahma Jyoti. So a soul that goes there thinking that they're getting out of the material world is not going to be ultimately satisfied. So there's a risk of falling down to the material world. And also in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, text 6, Srila Prabhupada says, there is no need of sunshine, we heard that, in the spiritual sky, no moonshine, no electricity, because all of the planets there are self-illuminated. When we say self-illuminated, it looks that way, and it is that way, but the source of that illumination is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now we say self-illuminated, and we say it also comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how do we put those two together? Self. It is, in fact, the first expansion, the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram, that is responsible for the manifestation of the spiritual world. So the spiritual world is actually from the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is the source, and therefore that illumination that is talked about here, self-illumination of the planets, is also from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that sense. Now, Srila Prabhupada again defines it in another way, the Brahma Jyoti, the shining effulgence of all those self-eliminated planets called the Vaikunthas is a shining sky, which is known as the Brahma Jyoti. Then Srila Prabhupada becomes more specific. Says, actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan. That shining effulgence is emanating from Krishna's planet, Goloka Vrindavan. And all the other Vaikuntha planets are based in lack of a better word, based in that effulgence. And so they look very, very effulgent as if it's coming from them, but they're all part of Lord Balaram. So part of that shining effulgence covered by this material world called Mahatattva, that's then what we're being told to slowly get away from, because this is a place, the material world is a place where we're not going to be happy, however much light we get even from the sun, which is just a reflection of the Brahma Jyoti. So Srila Prabhupada talks about material world that way. Then he says, other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets called the Vaikunthas. Vaikuntha means place of no anxiety. And anxiety is one of the major problems of trouble here in the material world. There's no anxiety in the spiritual world. Everything is provided. So as long as it's a living entity is in this material world, dark material world, he's in conditioned life. Srila Prabhupada uses the word dark because in a universe, typical universe in the material world, the sun is the only planet that has light in it. And the light we know now is in fact the reflection of the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual light emanating effulgence, rays emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as long as the living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditioned life. But when he reaches the spiritual sky by cutting through this false, perverted lifestyle here of this world, then he becomes liberated. And Krishna gives the promise, if you go to the spiritual world, there's no chance of coming back here. So we as devotees are aspiring to go to the spiritual world by developing gradually love of Krishna, Krishna Prema. To develop love of Krishna Prema, if we do not understand God, we don't know much about God, which is our situation, we've left the spiritual world, lifetimes, lifetimes, and lifetimes, and tried to survive here one life after another in the material world, and that gets us nowhere because the suffering doesn't stop. And what happens is, if we desire something, again, at the time of death, thinking about that, we get put in another body to try to get that particular type of so-called gratification. But the gratification, as long as it's in the material world, never really comes. So Srila Prabhupada also talks in Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 44, that knowledge means to know everything of Brahman, the Supreme, and renunciation means detachment from material affection. So we're being told that real knowledge is to know everything spiritual, and to renounce means to get away from material affection or material attraction. And devotional service is to revive by practicing the original position of a living being. So we have to understand three things. We are not in this material world as our home. We are here as a place of reformation. Therefore, those who are trying to make it and think they're going to be successful in the material world get disappointed in the end. And that's exactly what happens. They get disappointed in the end because death comes to take everything away. Death comes to take everything away. It doesn't matter what your signature is on any property, anything here, death takes it away. So takes it away, then what happens? The next person that gets it will also lose it. As long as in the material world, everybody that says that something is in my care, it's only for a period of time and then they lose it because death comes to take it away. Therefore, nobody really owns anything when you think about it. This is with you for a period of time and then it's not with you anymore. Because death comes, physical body is left, the soul goes on to the next existence. But if we're fortunate enough to connect with the pure devotee of the Lord, then the soul leaves this material world and goes to the spiritual world where the effulgence, the real effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, and there is total refraining from anything temporary. Everything is permanent. And there's also permanent joy and service and understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is tops and nobody gets to that level or nobody exceeds him in any way. These are all attractive. And so that understanding we use here and begin to practice how to go back to Godhead. This is what the spiritual masters, this is what the Shastra, the books, the spiritual books tell us. And so we engage in bhakti, devotional service of the Lord, in order to go back home to the Vaikunthas. And especially in our situation, Srila Prabhupada is directing us to go back to these spiritual planets where the effulgent race originate, Goloka Vrindavan. So we are extremely fortunate if we take this process seriously. What to do to take the process seriously? First, the first thing Srila Prabhupada says, you hear. Hear and hear and hear and develop eagerness to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his name, his form, his pastimes. And so the next point, which is the important thing for this particular yuga, is to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To come back to those souls who merged to the Brahma Jyoti, Srila Prabhupada describes, it was a letter that he was responding to. The letter asked the question, what is the difference between spirit souls comprising the Brahma Jyoti and the spirit souls here in Maya? Those in the Brahma Jyoti and here in Maya. Srila Prabhupada says, in the Brahma Jyoti, the spirit souls, on account of the impersonal views, they are devoid of a body. Exactly like here in Maya, there are ghosts who are devoid of any gross bodies. So that is the situation. The souls go in the Brahma Jyoti, they don't have the kinds of activity. In other words, they're not activities, therefore, the spirit souls is there. Yeah, that's there. But activity is not there, therefore, it's not shaped into a body like it is in the spiritual world, that we can relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in all kinds of rasas or relationship. Srila Prabhupada has already answered the question when it was asked about what happens in the spiritual world, in the spiritual planets, in the Vaikuntha planets. It is all based, activities are all based on loving connection between the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the divine couple, Radha Krishna. The soul expands to its original body that can relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there's also the voluntary way in which the person or the entity wants to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what we mean by that is, if particular activity is getting ready to happen for fun, it's all about fun, the soul can take on a different form as they want in order to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Jyoti, none of that happens. Even though the spirit soul is there, the spirit soul is very much alive, there's no death for the soul, but they can't do any of that. And Srila Prabhupada compares it to like ghosts who don't have any ghost bodies, like the way it is here. So the spirit source and the Brahma Jyoti, although they have no desire for sense gratification, they feel the inconvenience still, like a ghost feels here. And therefore, over time, Krishna will give them the opportunity to come back into this atmosphere, develop a material body, and this time, if they want, go past the thought of, I'm just going to go merge with the Brahma Jyoti. But go beyond that to the Paramatma level, and beyond that to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhakti Yoga. So those of us that we know Krishna, that through the mercy of Guru, we've come to know about Krishna, we are being taken to the highest way in which one can relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti Yoga is the highest. But one can go into the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual effulgence, merge, and can even be like some of the yogis do, go into meditation on the Supreme Personality of God as the Paramatma, the expansion of it. But we are being taken right to the top, relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the souls will have the opportunity to relate in different ways. And it's all about service. And that service brings great happiness. As a matter of fact, Ananda or bliss in the dictionary is the highest happiness that one can have. So we'll read one more answer to a question Prabhupada answered for the Buddha. Regarding your position about the Brahma Jyoti, it is explained in Bhagavad Gita that impersonal Brahman effulgence is emanating from Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahma Jyoti is just like a sunlight which emanates from the sun god. Because the sunlight has no personal form, it does not mean that the sun god has become impersonal. So this point here was a question about Brahma Jyoti, but also Sri Prabhupada answered in such a way so that the person won't think of God as being impersonal. There is a sun god, Vivaswan, and he is personal, and he is responsible for this sun, which we now know is a reflection of the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual. So Sri Prabhupada is reminding the devotee, you've seen pictures of Krishna, that there's a nice effulgence coming forth from his body. That effulgence is called the Brahma Jyoti, and it pervades throughout, and it covers throughout the entire spiritual and material manifestation. But above this Brahma Jyoti is the supreme source of everything, Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And then he says, I hope this point is clear to you now. This is a letter to Bhadra on 4 December 1969. So, Brahma Jyoti, devotees don't focus on it very much because, of course, our focus is how to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But still, it calls to reason, and we also need to remember that in the spiritual world, that by the mercy of the Lord, we'll finally get to, is effulgent because of the Brahma Jyoti coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything is from a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have to stay with the process to develop love for him, and that is by serving him and serving Guru and serving especially the devotees. By also hearing and chanting and following the different services as we are being taught, as we're growing, until the point that we get the opportunity to go back home and to serve in the transcendental realm. Hare Krishna. So, again, the Upanishads call the transcendental impersonal Brahman. What they call that is the glowing effulgence of the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll stop here.
Thank you so much for the class and really going step by step, I have to say, really step by step, explaining that the three levels, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and breaking it down very simple and making it very, Understandable. That was very, very helpful. Thank you.
The
Would
credit
like to
goes to
ask
Prabhupada.
Yes, was really nice.
Because I was actually taking references from what he was saying.
And
Go ahead.
and I would love to actually see those references by Shiv Prabhupada so that I can read and really digest it further, very, very nice. Mother Gita said that she agreed that it was broken down so nicely by Shiv Prabhupada. Amazing. Thank you. Would like to ask devotees if there are any questions, any comments, any takeaways, any reflections. Please do either you can raise your hand or you can just unmute yourself and just jump right in. I think this class was so step by step. Pariksit said Bhagavad Gita 4:24 is 1. Okay, good to know. Thank you. And that's very, very helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I just have a question. So and in a 30-second gist or 1 minute gist, like, oh, he's shooting us with this verses. Amazing. We better make notes of all this.
But I'm hearing you.
That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Colby. Yes, very nicely explained. So just for my limited knowledge of understanding, because I'm so much of a visual learner, it takes me some time to digest stuff. So in the Brahmin effulgence, people know, those that go there, they know that they're not the body, but they don't get any connection with the Supreme Lord. Like there's no service.
No, there isn't.
That's okay. There's no service. So it's just like La La Land.
Yeah. There is a peaceful existence. Because it's not like Kunta or an anxiety-ridden place, just like it is in the material world. There is a peaceful existence, but there's no activity. And that's why Srila Prabhupada referred it to a ghost in an analogy. Because a ghost can see, they're in a worse position because they can see what's going on with those in the physical bodies in the material world, but they can't take part in it. They can't take part. So if they want to enjoy themselves, they can't. They don't have the gross physical body to enjoy it. And so that's their situation. That is, so they can see those in gross physical bodies in this material world, but they can't take part. So they take part in any activity, whatever the activity is. But in the spiritual world, then of course the soul expands to a situation where they can act with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in bliss. That's even better. Not just an activity, but activity that makes the souls very, very, very happy. And then they have also, this is all in the spiritual world now, the opportunity to change to other spiritual type bodies, for lack of a better way to put it, in order to join the pastimes or the activities that's going on. But it's all in fun. All in fun, no anxiety.
Xavier put a nice reflection, I have to say, that he said the comparison of living as a ghost here really helped understand that existence. Thank you for the class, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That was nice. Yes. So yeah, because I think for me, especially with when you described the gist of the Brahman realization, it's so simply, it's like so simple that it's just makes complete sense. Like it's very easy to understand. So
Prabhupada makes it easy to understand.
Shiv Prabhupada always makes it so, because he knew that we are a big mess. He knows that we just need something simple because our minds are so corrupted that we need something really, really simple. So he makes it so simple. He's so merciful. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Any questions from devotees? I know this class was so step by step. I feel so step by step and so simplified that it's like, okay, I got the class. It makes so much sense. We're getting more verses here, PBG 15.6. And if any of you would, I'm actually making notes of these verses. So if any of you would like to get this please do either reach out to me or Pariksit, and we will definitely get them, because these are powerful verses that he is sharing with us from this lecture. Really, really nice.
I'll put one more there and then
Please.
stop. Yes.
Yes. Yes. We
And
would
that's
love
a
to have all
Srimad
these
Bhagavatam.
references. We would love to have all these references.
944. Okay. All right. So those are pretty much all.
Okay, perfect.
Apart
I am
from,
making notes of all my verses so I can go back and make my notes. Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. 1944. Great.
You
This
read
was
down to the purports and it gets there.
wow.
Description of wealth.
This is and I have to say this class was so simplified, so step by step, so easy, so I think the word is so relatable, like really down to earth, easy for our simple minds understanding that it's been very, very helpful. And I hope that I hope, I'm assuming that I'm speaking for the group here, because it was very step by step. It's very easy for us to understand, because we know that Caitanya Caritamrta, as Sri Prabhupada said, is postgraduate level, and postgraduate level is not easy to understand. So to break it down to undergrad level, it's very helpful, very, very helpful. So thank you so much. That's what Sri
Prabhupada does.
Yeah, down to high school level, if you ask me. So yes.
Any person, beginner in Krishna consciousness can relate to a good bit of it, if not all of it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Want to just remind devotees, please do not forget to join us this evening for our Bhagavad Gita circle at 6 o'clock. Until then, thank you all for joining us. And if you need the verses, please do reach out to me or Krishna, and we will share it with you. Until then, have a wonderful day, and looking forward to seeing all of you this evening at 6 o'clock. Vanchakapadvyascha, Kripasindadevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.